This video explains how to use the position sizing watch list worksheet. The first thing to do is take a look at the blog post. The blog post is at edgerator.com/blog, and then look for the position sizing watch list worksheet blog post. It gives a brief explanation of what the worksheet actually does, how to download it, and where to put it when you have downloaded it and unzipped it. And from there, you can have it installed, and then you can follow along with this video. So first off, you can open up the worksheet in Microsoft Excel because it is an XLSX file, and here you can see I've opened it up inside Microsoft Excel. But that's one thing you can do. If you don't have Edgerator, then you can just use it within Excel, and that's fine. But you get extra bonus features if you run this within Edgerator. So I'm going to show you how to use it within Edgerator. So I have my Edgerator running here. I'm in the Templates tab. And what I'm going to do is click the Open Report button. And by default, that will allow me to open files from the reports directory. Now you could go and choose a different directory if you happen to have installed that worksheet in a different place on your hard drive. That's fine, you just have to go and find it from within this open file dialog. But I put my report into the reports directory because then it's really easy for me to find with this dialog box, because it defaults to that directory, and it's called watchlist_1.xlsx. I can just click it and click open, and a new window will open. It's showing me the report, and so it comes up in a brand new window. I can close down the main Edgerator window, and I can just look at it within this window. Now, because this is a report that we're actually going to be entering data into, I want to allow editing. So I click in on this allow editing button up here, makes the whole worksheet editable, so I can then do things like type in symbols or fill in any data in any of the cells of this worksheet. So there's a default sample set of data in here. It just contains one symbol, and it's just an example of how to fill out the worksheet, and it's got formatting set in there too. Now, of course, this isn't something that you're going to have to or need to have in your watch list, so you can go ahead and delete that row. But first of all, you might want to just overwrite the values in the row with your own values, that way retaining the formatting and so on. It's also useful to have this in here just so you can see, and I can show you what you can actually do once you've got this information in here. So because it's a report, like every report that's generated within Edgerator, you can actually view a chart of the symbols. There's only one symbol in here, EYES, which is Second Sight Medical Products. And if I click on the View Chart, chart window will pop up, and it's come up in a different window. I'm going to put that on the side over here. I'm actually going to close this one to the left-hand side. And then, as you might imagine, if I had more symbols in here, for instance, say I entered MSFT, that's Microsoft, and I come up to Microsoft. Now, as I scroll around this report, my chart is updating with whatever I have selected. So that's one of the major benefits of using this within Edgerator, is no matter when you come back and you review some of the stocks that you've put in here and the date that you noted them and made comments on them, that date will be highlighted with this Edge Event label. Provided you have the Edge Events label turned on up here, it will actually be highlighted, and so you can always go and see the point in time that you made a note of that stock, and you can also see what happened after you made a note of it. So as an example here, let me just delete the Microsoft thing. I don't need that right now. So as an example here, just purely as a watch list, this is useful for putting in stock symbols and dates, and potentially you can put in the close price, but it's not necessary if you're just using this as a watch list. It's not really necessary either to put the date in, but it really helps because then the chart will reflect the date that you made the entry. So the two important things to put in here then would be symbol and date. The other things are not 100% necessary. Okay, so what else can you do with this sheet? Well, say you had seen EYES, and actually I had made note of this before I saw all of this information to the right, and so I made a comment about this. I found this stock by using some of the scans within Edgerator, and I was interested to see that it had a big update here, and I looked at the chart and went back and saw that the lows down here 6 months ago were at this level, and so I noted that in the comment field I just made a note that there was a bounce of 10% from hitting the lows of 6 months ago. So my potential trade, or my proposed action here, was that I wanted to go long. If I want to go long, I'll enter a 1 in this field and it will replace it with the word long. My action would be, I want to buy at a limit price of $9.51. So how did I figure that out? Well, I looked at the chart and saw that the close price was at $10.12, and then I tried to make sense of the chart. I didn't want to buy at the very top up here, but if there was a little pullback, I might be interested in buying, looking for places where it would be sensible for me to buy, that would give me a point where I could get out that actually made sense for a profit loss and for a stop loss. So I think I decided on here as 951 would be a reasonable entry point. So you can see that's right down here, about halfway up this candle. My stop loss, I said, would be 883. So if we look down here, 883 is just below this candle. So I figured that would be a good point to call it quits and exit from the stock. And then profit target, looking up here, I see that there's some resistance here around the 1120-ish level. So profit target 1118 I put in here. So I entered this information, and then the worksheet has got formulas that calculates this other information. So you type in your account size and say $10,000. The amount you want to risk per trade, 1.5%. I've got in here. You can make that smaller or larger. And then the worksheet will say your allowed risk for this trade is $150. 1.5% of $10,000 is $150. So that's fine. Then how many shares can you trade? Well, the worksheet will calculate that based on your entry price that you entered, which would have been the action price over here, $9.51. So it says that the number of shares allowed is 220. Now 220 is not necessarily a great number. It's not a round number. It's not a divide by 100 number. And so, sometimes it's nice to trade in 100 lots. It makes it easier to get in and get out, and you may be filled a bit quicker. So you might then want to say, I'm going to override that. I'm actually going to trade at 300 shares instead of 220. Could have made that 200 instead if I wanted to be on the lower side. And so the worksheet then says, well, okay, you entered 300 in here. The final number of shares I'm going to use for calculating the rest of this information is 300. If I had not entered any information in here, I just deleted it just then, you can see that the final number of shares is going to be 220. So all the other information is based on that 220. So, but I'm going to say, I'm going to override that with 300. And then it's going to tell me what my risk per share is. So $0.68 risk per share. The percent risk here is 2.04% of my account size. Why is that more than I only wanted to risk 1.5%? Well, it's more because I overrode the number of shares that I was going to trade. If I go back to that, delete that override, then the risk comes down to 1.5%. But I'm going to put that back in as 300. And then I'm going to sort of assess that. Am I comfortable with a 2% risk on this particular trade? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Then it will tell me what the cost of that position will be. So it's $2,853. The profit, so that's the cost of the position. So that is not the risk of the position, it's the cost. The risk is less in dollar terms, and we'll come to that in a minute, just because of the stop loss. So the profit per share potential is $1.67. The profit and loss as a fraction, well, as a decimal here, is 2.46. So that means that the profit is more than the loss. Okay, if it's less than a 1, then it's going to be the profit is going to be less than the potential loss. But so sometimes you might have a particular figure in mind. For instance, you might always want to get a 3-to-1 sort of trade, like 3 times the amount on the profit side versus 1 times on the loss side. but this will tell you exactly what it is. In this case, it's a 2.46 profit to loss ratio, or that works out to 5 to 2. So the dollar profit potential is $500 here. The dollar loss potential is $204, assuming that we can get out at the stop loss and assuming that we get out at the profit target. So it calculated all that information, and then you can decide on whether that is a good trade for you. You can put it in this list, save this. You can hit just the save button and it will save it as that same file name, and you can load it up tomorrow and the day after and the next week, and you can keep scrolling through the stocks and looking at the chart to see well, first of all, you can see if it hit the entry target, and you can, if you didn't actually make the trade but you just sort of wrote this down as an example of paper trading, you could say, then you can see what would have happened if you had made that trade. So let's take a look at that. And in this case, I did not trade this, but it's we'll call it a paper trade. So the day after I made this note, and let me scroll over to here so we can see what the action was. It was going to be a buy limit at 9.51. So the day after, it actually did hit the 9.51 level, came a little below 9.51. So that would have been an entry. If I had put that in as an order in the market, it would have been an entry there at 9.51. And then we have to wait to see if it hits the stop loss or if it hits the profit target. So the stop loss was 883. So following day didn't get down to 883, but it's off of where the entry was. The next day, the low of that bar is about 890. So still didn't hit the stop loss, but not looking good. We're getting a little worried down here, 889. And finally, and we do stick at 889 for that bar. We have a little bit of a rally coming in here. Goes just above the entry price, and we continue on here. And this day, so went above the entry price. Now we're up here at the high of that bar was 10.53, but we're looking at 11.18 as our profit target. So still in the trade, nothing else going on. Still waiting to see what's going to happen with the trade. And there we are, up to the end of yesterday. So if this had played out, we'd still be in this trade. Would have been holding it for 10 days or so right now at a pretty much break-even point. But this is just an example of not trying to point out a good trade, just trying to point out how to use the worksheet. So then how do you add things into the worksheet, other things? So that's the important thing to know. So say you then are running scans. You can run scans on if you have EdgeRater, you can run many great scans in EdgeRater. Or if somebody has told you about a stock, or you heard something that was interesting to you, you could make a note of it in here. Say why you thought it was interesting in the comment field. But I'm going to run a scan in EdgeRater. Okay, so I'm going to look at my in-play template, and I'm going to run it on the list of stocks that have weekly options, and I'm just going to hit run on here. So this is running a scan, things that have been in play over the last 10 days. I'm going to try and find something that is interesting to me to add to my watch list. So bring up the chart again. I'll pop the chart over here, put this on the other side, and now I can start scrolling down through this list until I find something of interest. This plug power has had a 40% max play over the last 10 days. It's interesting. It's had a move, maybe looks somewhat extended. But I could add that to my watch list. I could say that is interesting. It's gotten a little too far away. But let's see if we can find something else. Just actually trying to find, it doesn't really matter, it's just as an example. Yamana Gold, obviously it's in a downtrend, trying to make some rallies off the bottom here. Seadrill also in a downtrend. So lots of things here in a downtrend. Now Sarepta Therapeutics is in an uptrend. It's been doing very well, and it's broken out. It's kind of at the top of a range right now, but perhaps I'm going to be interested in this if it comes back down to around 37.84. So say that was the goal. So what we can do is we can select Sarepta on the report, Okay, I've just selected the symbol, description, date, and close columns. That's all. I'm going to press Control C, which is my copy command, and I'm going to go back to my watch list, bring that over here, and then I'm going to select this row here, and I'm going to press Control V. So now I've copied in Sarepta, and it's copied the date that I ran the scan. Now maybe that's not the date that I'm really want the chart to show me when I look at the chart in the future, so I can adjust that date on here if I want, but I'm going to leave it set at 9/21 because I know that's when I ran the scan. It's got the close price in. I can put a comment. I'll say this is a found using in play, wait for pullback, or something like that. And then I could say, well, it's interesting to me long, so I'll enter a 1 for a long. The action actually has no bearing on the calculations in the worksheet. It's just a notation for you to know and make a note of what action you're going to take with this stock. It could just, your action could be, you could just be watch, that's your action, and you wouldn't go and enter any more information, but you could actually go out and fill the whole rest of this spreadsheet in and say, I'm going to buy limit, well, actually this is actionable, interested potentially at 37.73, so my price would be 37.73. I think that I'm going to know that I'm wrong if it comes down below here at 36.12. That'll be my stop loss. And my profit target, well, I'd be looking for it to get to around 44. So I'll enter that information in here. And then you'll notice that we have to copy down the formulas from the row above. A simple way to do that in Excel and also within EdgeRater is to just select these cells here, okay, and then press Control D, which is your copy down. So it's going to copy down all of those formulas and formatting from the row above. Now you'll notice it also copied down the share override, so I'm going to delete the share override. Not interested in that in this case. I might be in a little bit, but first of all I'm just going to look through, make sure this makes sense. So 1.5% of $10,000 account, that's $150 allowed risk, allows me to trade 93 shares. That's a very odd number of shares to trade. I'm going to override that to be 100. That gives me $1.61 risk per share, or 1.61% of my account is being risked because we're 100 shares at 1.61. The cost of that position is going to be $3,773, and the potential profit is going to be $6.27 per share. That gives me a 3.89 profit to loss ratio, or 35 to 9 profit to loss ratio. So potential profit is 627, potential loss is 161. So I'm just going to leave that in there, and what I can do here is just hit save. I could hit also save as, and I could save this report as something special. Maybe this, you're creating a watch list of buyers that are based off of a certain scan, then you can save it as a different name, and it's fine. It just gets saved in that same folder as that name, so you'll always know where it is and where to find it, and potentially you give it a name that gives you an idea of what the watch list is all about. So once you've started filling this in, you can imagine you can run scans in EdgeRater. You just copy the things over that are interesting to you, and just kind of work like that. And as the days go on, you can just fill this list in with more and more information. It will always have a list of the date that you made the entry, and that means that whenever you go back to the chart, let's bring the chart back, and we're looking at the chart over here. So if I'm looking now at, I've clicked on EYES, and it's 8/28/2015 was the date that I made that note, then this is pointing to 8/28/2015. But I made the note about Sarepta on 9/21, and you can see that it's pointing to 9/21 over here, Monday. Okay, so other things that you can do in here, you see, I think you get the idea of how that works, but all of these are filterable and sortable like anything within EdgeRater reports. So if you had filled this list out and you had potentially put actions in here of, maybe I said my action in here is test. It's just a word that I'm going to use to filter on. So then I could say I'm going to filter this whole list by everything that's just test. So now I'm only seeing things in here that are categorized as test. But it's just a way for you to categorize things. And if there are other fields that you need to have in the worksheet, obviously you can just go in and add columns into the worksheets. You can do that within Excel, or you could do that also within EdgeRater. Probably easier to do that within Excel right now. If you want to clear the filters, you just hit clear filter and everything will come back in. So there you go. It's a simple spreadsheet. Allows you to do position sizing calculations, and also building up a watch list that you can also annotate with reasons why you've added things to added stock to the watch list. So go ahead and have a play with it, and hope you enjoy it. Thanks very much.